The following instructional program is an outreach service of Penn State's College of Education, Department of Educational and School Psychology and Special Education, and Penn State Continuing and Professional Education. This program was produced in collaboration with the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network. Parts of this presentation are copyrighted and included with the permissions of the copyright holders. No portions of this material may be copied or transmitted without expressed permission.
Hello. Welcome to EPIC 1, Session 1. I'm Linda Mason, and I will be working with you on the first session, Promoting Learning and Participation for Students with Mild Disabilities. In this session, we will examine learning and developmental characteristics of students with mild disabilities. We will also look at how to identify instructional goals for students with mild disabilities and how to provide instruction for students with mild disabilities. To wrap up the session, we will be examining how to promote academic and social participation for students with mild disabilities. Throughout this session, I will provide you with review and practice questions. These questions are going to be similar to those that you will be taking on your exam. In addition, you will have activities either on Angel in your packet to complete. Students with mild disabilities are the students that most likely you will see in your classroom. In this overview of students with mild disabilities, I will describe characteristics of the students and provide legal definitions. You will also watch a video for each of the disability type. I hope through these activities that you will feel comfortable in posting your thoughts on the session discussion board. Students with mild disabilities make up 94% of students with disabilities. The disability is often not identified until the child is school age. In this case, it can be a big surprise for parents, friends, and relatives. The developmental nature of the disability may also change as the student progresses through school. For example, a young child, 2 or 3, with speech difficulties, with therapy and with time, may grow out of those difficulties. Students, as I noted before, with mild disabilities are the ones most included in general education classrooms. Students with mild disabilities are generally categorized into 5 types of disabilities: learning disabilities, speech or language impairments, attention deficit disorders, including attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD, emotional or behavioral disorders, mild mental retardation, or as known now, more recently, developmental disabilities. First, we will look at students with learning disabilities. Students with learning disabilities make up 5% of the total school population. More than half of the students receiving special education services have learning disabilities. You may have heard terms such as dyslexia or dyscalculia. These are all types of learning disabilities. While watching the video on dyslexia, think about the speaker's experience in the classroom and workplace. Reflect on the potential outcomes for a student incorrectly labeled or not identified, and what you as a teacher can do to avoid a similar scenario. Be sure to record down your thoughts for reflection and possible posting on the discussion board.
I was 29 years old. and I was painting lines in a parking lot, and a gentleman stopped to ask directions. What a pain in the butt. I had to stop my line painting machine to talk to this gentleman. He said he wanted to know how to get to a local greenhouse, and I said, well, that's pretty simple. You go out the parking lot here, you make a right, you go down the road until you come to the Y, and you bear the left, and you go down that road, and you look for the crooked tree, and then you bear right there, and you go down that road a little bit, and look up on the left, and there you'll see the greenhouse. City slickers. He didn't get it. So he went to his car, and he came back, and I had started up my paint machine again. I had to stop it again. And he said, write that down. I fumbled with the paper and the pad. And I went back through the directions again. You know, all you have to do is, go down the road and look for the crooked tree. He said, write it down. And he realized that I was putting up such a fuss, it would have been much easier to write those directions down than put up that fuss. And he took the pen, and he took the tablet, and he said, you can't write, can you? No, he said, you can't read and write, can you? I said, no. He said, have you ever been tested for dyslexia? For the first time in 29 years, I had a name to go with this thing. This thing that had gotten in my way my entire life. And he sat there, this guy who I thought was a pain in my backside, sat there on the tailgate of my truck, and he talked to me for about an hour and a half about dyslexia and learning disabilities and literacy and the problems of literacy or the lack thereof in America. And he told me how to go get help. He suggested that I go to the State Office of Vocational Rehabilitation and ask for an evaluation. We shook hands, and he got in his car and he took off. If he said his name, and I'm sure he did, 5 minutes after he was gone, I didn't remember it. The guy who I thought was a pain in my backside changed my life. I swallowed my pride, and I went to the State Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and I said, I'd like to be evaluated for this dyslexia thing, see if I've got it. So they gave me my first evaluation, and when it came back, I couldn't accept it. The one statement that was in there on one of the tasks was that I performed in the educably mentally retarded range. I couldn't accept that. I could not. I knew there was a problem. I knew it from the time I was a boy. But I couldn't accept that. So I asked him, well, it can't be this serious. We have to do another evaluation. So they did. Same thing. And then I asked them to do a third. Finally, on the third evaluation, I accepted, oh, okay, must be this bad. So what are we going to do about it? Well, Nelson, you've got to pick a career that we're going to rehabilitate you for. I went back to the thoughts of being a boy. Let me tell you about being a boy in Juniata County, here in Pennsylvania. I went to the first grade, and I did pretty well with one-syllable words. As a matter of fact, my teacher sent a note home to my mother that said, Nelson's the best reader in the class. Imagine that. I got to the second grade, and I was really proud. I was very confident because of how I performed in the first grade. And all of a sudden, we're working on two-syllable words, trying to get lined up in a sentence. Didn't work. I quickly realized that there was something wrong. We were starting to, write our names. And every day I would try to write my name. And the teacher, she didn't understand. I don't think she meant any harm in it. She would write my name on the blackboard every day the way I tried to write it on paper. Then, of course, she'd get a big laugh out of it, and all the other kids would get a big laugh out of it. And I was even laughing on the outside because, I didn't want anybody to know this bothered me. On the inside, I was saying, you, dirty, rotten. I remember that as being the first time in my life that I really had to make a conscious decision about my life. I said, okay, Nelson, you have a choice here. You can either look like the dumb kid or the bad kid. I chose to be the bad kid. I would do anything to keep from looking like the dumb kid. My number one goal as a boy in elementary school was to make sure no teacher wanted me back the next year. And I was pretty successful at that. That got me through elementary school. I figured out quickly that they would push me through. In that time, in that place, in a little place like Juniata County, they didn't know what to do with a kid like me. So they would push me through. That got me to junior high school. Then I got to the junior, senior high school, and I ran into a gentleman there, my principal, who everything was black and white for him. Everything was concrete. If you marched to the beat of a different drum, that didn't work very well. So here I am, I'm used to this role as the bad kid, and I take that to my new high school, and I try that with disastrous results. And what started off as corporal punishment quickly crossed the line and became very, very violent. Every time something didn't work, it was stepped up. And when that didn't work, I was placed in isolation, in solitary confinement. I wasn't always permitted to be with the rest of the students. And I got to tell you, that was okay. As long as I didn't look like the dumb kid. As long as I could be the bad kid, I was doing all right. So believe it or not, I graduated from high school. I put my time in. My mother hadn't graduated from high school, and nor did my father. And what my parents wanted more than anything was for their children to have high school diplomas. I wanted them to have that. So I put in my time and I stuck it out. And believe it or not, in 1981, I walked across the stage when my high school looked much like this stage, and I got a diploma that I struggled to read. At that time, my reading and writing skills were at best out of a second grader. I've been back to that school to look at my high school records. I graduated 104 out of a class of 104. So here I was this really angry guy. I was a train wreck. I couldn't get a real job, so I went out and I started my own companies. I did okay. I bounced from one business to the next. Sometimes I did well. Sometimes I failed miserably. And what might have looked rather exciting to the casual onlooker was nothing more than a desperate attempt to keep food on the table. And then one day, a gentleman stopped and asked for directions.